So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Welcome to my Samsung Galaxy S21 FE full review. This is the 5G. This is the 5G phone right here. I've had it about 2 weeks now, and in this episode, I want to share with you, my full review, my take, my thoughts on it. Should you buy this phone right here? Let's take it out of this S-View cover case, which is one of my favorites here because it definitely protects it. It does give it some nice overall feel as well. So I did go with the olive green edition. This is the base entry 128 gig. It is combined with a Snapdragon 888, and it also does have 6 gigabytes of RAM on this phone right here. So definitely not the most RAM in the world, but it does have a very high-end CPU. Now the price point of this one comes in at $699, and it threw off a few people because they said, well, why don't I just go get myself the Galaxy S21 and call it a day? And that's because there is some selling points to this one. This one right here has basically a similar camera setup, and it also does have the same CPU, a little bit less RAM, but has a larger panel screen on the front. It's also got a wider screen, 19:9 on here versus like a 20:9. This is a more narrow panel here for the Galaxy S21. And also the Galaxy S21 does have a smaller battery, but it does have a more premium edge on the phone there. Overall though, the S21 FE does seem to be quite the bargain of a Samsung phone, but when you consider that it came out at the time it did, it no longer feels that way to a lot of people. But let me discuss my take with the build, the body, the design. So we do have ourselves an aluminum overall, chassis here around the edges. At the bottom, we will have a slot for our SIM card. We don't have SD card support here, so that goes away. USB-C fast charging. This is capable of up to around 25 watts of charging, so you do have a solid amount of charge. It'll give you about 50% in 30 minutes, and you can do fast wireless on the back here at about 15 watts, so you can get a fast wireless charger. And then on the side here, we do have ourselves the volume rocker, 5G antennas. We do have ourselves the power button, also doubles as the Bixby key. At the top here, you'll see just another antenna right there. Overall, I really like the edges of it. It stays super clean on this phone. Then on the back, you will see ourselves that more polycarbonate, aka a higher end plastic back here. But at least they went ahead and covered up the camera, so everything about this phone always stays really clean. I do like that traffic light looking camera right there though. At least they put some nice metal trim pieces around the camera edges to make it just look a little more premium. On the whole, the weight of this phone is around 177 grams, so for its size, it actually feels very light. And it's a fully flat panel right here on this phone, so you're getting that full flatness. So if you're not into the curves, you don't got to worry about it here. This is a fully flat panel. At 19:9, this panel is actually wider than the Galaxy S21 Ultra, S21 Plus, and S21. Those are 20:9 screens, which are a little bit more narrow and tall. So definitely enjoyed that. It gave me more of a spacious feeling screen here on the phone. When you are reading articles and stuff like this, it just seems like the text was a little bit more spread out, gave it a larger feel than it really is. Let's move to the display here. Look at these bezels, super thin. That's one of the first things I noticed about this phone when I took it out of the box was, wow, those bezels are nice. It does have a very slight chin, but overall, you feel like you have such an all-screen kind of phone, except for the punch hole, but that's, I think, better than some other solutions on the market. This one does have 411 PPI and 85.3 screen-to-body ratio, but it just feels like you're holding pretty much an all-screen on here. The display itself is a dynamic AMOLED panel, which is very similar to what you'll find on the more premium S lines. This is a 2X as well. It does have the 120 Hertz adaptive refresh, so you are going to get a very smooth overall feel as well, or you can go into standard to save some battery. This is wrapped in Gorilla Glass Victus here, and it does have support for an always-on display. Mostly what I noticed is that, you're still getting that same smooth factor that you would get from your, Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, for example, something like that. And what's really important about this is if you look at the competition, specifically like something like the iPhone 12 or something like the iPhone 13, those are giving you 60 Hz panels at the same price point. This is giving you 120 Hertz. So you are getting technically a better screen here. And it's also very vivid because Samsung Display makes some of the best displays out there, so it's super vivid, and it just gives you HDR10 Plus support as well. The panel itself also takes good advantage of the screen because of the software that's implemented here. You can have dual split screen applications on board. I actually like to have two calculators sometimes because I do, these ridiculous calculations sometimes. People ask, why do you have two calculators, Nick? Well, I'll show you right here. Because I'll be doing calculations and I want to see another calculation on the bottom, but then the calculator, I got to go into history and then it's kind of covered up. So I'll do two calculations side by side to see, the math I'm doing right here. So that's a good use of it. Also, if you want to put like browser and YouTube at the same time, it takes real good advantage of this screen. You also have the ability to put it in auto brightness, and I do like how Samsung does bring the brightness slider down. Here on One UI 4, it makes it easier to reach that. Watching video on here is also a joy because, again, look what you're holding. You're holding a barely, bezel-less screen here. You don't have really much bezels at all for this phone. So it's mostly like you're using a full screen, and you do get a very nice vivid image overall and very clear, detailed. It's just a nice screen to look at stuff. OLED is beautiful. We know that by now. There's just not much more to talk about it. I'm just saying, if you're picking this phone up, you're getting a very high-end display. So out of the box, you are getting the Android 12 coupled with Samsung's One UI 4. Now, that means you're going to get a lot of Samsung apps on here, of course. You're going to get their stuff, and then you're going to get Google stuff as well. So if you like Android and you like Samsung, you'll love this device, obviously. Now, what I will say is that, they really did clean things up. Samsung software is no longer a mess. It's really quite clean, and it has a lot of advanced features on board, such as link to Windows. You have the call and text on other devices where you can kind of sync them together. You have Samsung DeX, which is a major feature for Samsung phones. It allows you to turn your phone into essentially a computer. All you need is a monitor, a USB cable, and a keyboard, maybe a mouse. You could even use the phone as a mouse, honestly, and the keyboard on the phone if you want, but that makes it a little bit weird. You have motions and gestures that allow you to lift or wake this phone. You can double tap to turn the screen on. You can see palm swipe to capture, which is a Samsung classic feature. Scrolling down, you'll see there's even more. So there's always a lot to do with this device. And then you have good battery care management on this phone. You can even go up here, you can go to automations, and you can have auto restarts on this phone as well. So a lot going on here. They have the storage laid out quite clean. You can see everything it's taking up on here. Unfortunately, no SD card support, so that might anger some people, but get the storage that matters to you. Then you could check your memory, you could scan for malware, stuff like that. It's a very privacy-focused phone as well. You do have yourself digital well-being controls here, which are from over on Android 12. Definitely quite nice on this device. You have a whole privacy manager up there. We're not going to go in there. And you could change your wallpapers. And with Android 12, you do have the different color palettes, so you can kind of theme this out without having to do any launchers, extra launchers, stuff like that. You can apply it to the app icons as well. It's really up to you. And then if you swipe home, up at the top, there's a lot going on up here as well. You have the ability to quickly access DeX right there. In addition to that, we have the enhanced processing mode, which will really take advantage of the CPU. Other than that, it will run at a more efficient rate to give you good battery life. You have nearby share. You also have a bedtime mode, an extra dim feature, which I find to be very amazing. It actually was on most of this video, so that's probably why my screen was looking a little bit dim. But yes, this is a great feature. At nighttime, it really comes in handy. You don't want the phone blasting in your face, and that feature is great. Also, you do have the eye comfort shield, which I really enjoyed because before it was kind of just like this blue light filter where you had to tweak it yourself. If you put this on adaptive, it does give you this nice overall color. Whenever the environment changes, it'll automatically adapt to it. So I do like that feature. I'll turn it off for the video. And then you have Dolby Atmos to improve your overall audio quality when you are listening to the speaker. And I recommend always turning this on Samsung. Leave it on auto. The audio sounds much lower when you don't have Dolby Atmos on. So just go ahead. First thing you do when you get a Samsung phone, go ahead and turn on the Dolby Atmos. And you have the ability to wireless power share. You have a kids mode. You have a lot going on for this phone. There's also a secure folder. There's so much features on this phone, and it doesn't end there. Those are just some of the Samsung things. If you go over here to themes, Samsung also has a theme store where you can change your icons, your always on displays. You can change your wallpapers, stuff like that. There's just so much customization you could do to this phone right out of the box, and you don't even need to access the Play Store to do any of this. It's all built right in. You can also explore more wallpapers right there, and it'll link you right to the Galaxy theme store. In addition to that, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but the edge panels do make this quite a nice multitasking experience. You can edit these panels as well, put your own, different things right here. If we click this, you can hit a tap for that. There's a lot. I mean, I could go on, and I usually don't cover software that deeply because I'm pretty sure a lot of you know about this stuff, but it's just fun. There's a lot to do. It never really gets boring. If I hit over here, you'll see it's easy to turn it off as well. Not only that, if I go ahead and hold down the settings for this FE, you will have different grids you can do here, like you can do on most Samsung phones, and a lot going on here in the way of customizing your home screen. So yeah, you can see the software is fun. It's very productive. It's a workhorse of a software. You just don't have an S Pen for this phone. That's about the only thing that you will be probably missing for this device. But other than that, everything's customizable. Everything is super clean. And the software for this phone will more than likely be updated for around 3 to 4 years, probably closer to 4 years. Samsung's been saying they're gonna do 4 years. So that's pretty good. But look at these angles. This phone just looks really clean from a lot of different angles. Even though it's, pretty standard slab style, it definitely has a good overall look. Now, the under display fingerprint sensor is an optical variety, and I find it to be very accurate. Honestly, sometimes I don't know where it is when the screen is locked. You just got to remember these placements, but it's pretty much flawless. I thought it was going to be a little worse because it's not ultrasonic. It is optical, but it's been fine. It unlocks very fast all the time. Not only that, you do have the face unlock, which will also unlock quite quick if it can find me. Let me see if it can find me really quickly. I'm on a weird angle because of the camera. You'll see right there. It does get me pretty much every time, as long as it could detect me. Again, if you'll see right here, I'm a little bit blocked by the camera. So if you're wondering, oh, it's failing, no, I'm kind of blocked by the camera right here. The face unlock is pretty quick, but it's not super secure. I would rely on the fingerprint or the passcode if I was you. Real world performance for this phone, I've had it a couple weeks, and I gotta say, it's been not perfect, but it's been very good. And I'm not disappointed with it. There is the minor occasional blip here and there. Sometimes, something will like chop a little and do some weird stuff. It's very rare though. It's not like common. Like you have to kind of like wait for it. It's going to take a while. And one time I did have the camera crash on me when I did a double click to get to the camera. It just went black. I was annoyed by that. I was like, come on, Samsung. I threw the phone, picked it back up, and we got back to business. There's little stuff like that. And I never experienced this with Samsung phones that have like 8 to 12 gigs of RAM. So I think it might be something to do with the memory on this phone. So you might want to go with the 8 gig of RAM version if you're a little concerned about that. But the overall performance, I would say, very quick. You are getting a high-end CPU. You can run anything you want from Android on this phone, and it's not going to give you much of a problem. You can play games very quickly. You can, do social media. You can split screen. This phone has got enough power to do it. It's just sometimes here and there you will find that the phone itself does have a little bit of, the animations will look a little choppy, or something will just blip, will just freeze for a second and then come right back. So it's very rare occasion, but the performance overall is definitely very good. It's up to the par of 2022. You'll definitely be happy with it here. So when it comes to the actual storage and the price, I just want to touch on this again. $699 will net you the 128 gigabyte model, and it goes up from there. Now, I will recommend you get the higher storage if you're keeping this a long time, simply because there's no SD card support on this phone. So do keep that in mind for this phone. And if you're going to pay a little bit more, you're getting closer to an S21 Plus line of phones, you can consider maybe getting one of those instead. However, this is still a pretty good value overall when it comes to what you're actually getting here. So I would recommend a little bit higher storage if you're going to keep it quite some time. Now, the actual battery life on this phone has been something I was saving for this review towards this point in the review. And thank you if you're still here. But if we go over here to the battery, I've been very impressed here. This phone drains pretty slow for a Samsung phone. My S21 Ultra is not doing better than this phone for some reason. So this phone right here, giving me a full day easily. I mean, easily. I think the lowest I finished with was like 37%. This thing is strong in the battery. Here, I actually think it's better than the Galaxy S21 on battery life, and it's probably up there closer to that of the S21 Plus. So definitely very good in this respect. Let me get on to the camera experience of this phone. Now, I gotta say, the camera in here is just like the ones on the S21. You have the ability to go 3x optical. Then you could go all the way up to 30x on the zoom. There's a lot of zoom on this phone. So if you want a lot of zoom and you want it at that $699 price point, this is like your option right here. You'll definitely want this. If we go to more, you'll see Samsung always hooks it up with a ton of options to tweak the camera. One of my favorites is food mode, and mostly because when you put some food in here, it'll make everything vibrant. You'll even see that hacky sack right there getting a little bit more vibrant. The food mode will make the photo within the circle just punch more. So it's very fun to use that mode. And then we do have more modes like Pro Video. Let's go back. We got Pro Video here, which will allow you to tweak the settings and stuff. Pretty awesome. Let me go back to more. We have slow motion, dual recording, portrait video, pro modes, night modes, AR doodle. And then over here, you'll see you can bring them down here if you want. In addition, Samsung does allow you to change the aspect ratios of this phone. In addition to that, if we go to settings, there's a lot more you can change right here. You can even change your selfie color tone if you want it bright, you want it natural. It's up to you. There's a lot to do, and I think this is a very versatile camera setup. Some people think the results in some other phones do beat it out, but for me, I think it's very sharp, and it's definitely no weak camera. This is definitely one you could use. I actually shot a few thumbnails with this phone already for the channel. You wouldn't even notice. You didn't even notice at all. So definitely nice camera setup. It's in a plastic body, but they didn't go weak on the cameras. They're pretty darn good. Take a look at my samples and let me know your thoughts on how this thing actually performed. Now let's talk about the audio. Now I talked about having Dolby Atmos on. You need that on.
Smooth here.
Let me go ahead and raise it up.
Software, so it's not really going to be a major deal. I found the S20.
I don't find this to be anywhere near as loud as something like the S21 Ultra, for example, or the Galaxy Z Fold, but
to be pretty good performer as well, even though it didn't have the highest end stuff inside in terms of RAM.
For what it is, it'll get the job done. For what you need to do, it'll definitely get that job done for you. Now, one area where this phone was incredibly good was the signal strength, the 5G. It always had full bars. So if you want really good phone call performance, really good, signal strength, you don't got to worry about that. This is the phone. That is like everything I've learned and wanted to talk about with the Galaxy S21 FE. Now there's a ton more features. We could go really deep and dive into everything, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to help you decide should you buy it. And a lot of people are complaining that this phone is late. It's way too late. They don't even want to talk about it. The S22 is going to come over here on the scene and just take over and stuff like that. And yes, but you got to remember, the person buying this is not your techie, the person that wants to buy the latest and greatest phone. The person buying this is somebody who wants a high-end Samsung phone, but they don't want to pay a high-end price, or it's just not in their budget. That's what this option exists for, and I think it's a great option. It's really good value, and as somebody who uses the top-of-the-line Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, I will tell you that I don't miss too much features when using the FE from this phone. I only miss some of the 100 times zoom and a few things about it. It feels more premium, but other than that, this phone still offers about 80 to 85% of what a S21 Ultra would give you. And if you want a slimmer, lighter version of this, you can consider the sometimes cheaper, depending on where you look, Galaxy S21. It's basically a similar phone, almost identical, with a few more features and a smaller overall build. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section of this video. If you found it helpful, entertaining, informing, do me a favor, click the like button for me, subscribe for more. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.